What a huge win for Newcastle United as they take one step closer to Champions League football, beat Chelsea at St James's Park 2-0, and it was a game of football that pretty much had everything. It had bite, it had nastiness, it had aggression, it had mistakes, it had inconsistencies, but it also had moments of brilliance and quality. So we're going to be breaking it down it all, and you all know my love for both teams. So I actually want both teams to get Champions League football. So I'm going to speak about this game with an unbiased view. If you watch that first half, you'd probably think to yourself, there's no way Chelsea are going to win this game. There's no way Chelsea are going to get back into this game. But if you watch the second half, you're probably thinking, there's no way Newcastle are going to win this game. It was a game of two halves, and Chelsea did incredibly well to perform the way they did in that second half. Newcastle were passive, they were lackluster. Newcastle were everything Chelsea were in that first half, in that second half. It was a weird game of football, but Newcastle United did come out victorious and take one step closer to Champions League football. They're sitting in third, a point behind Arsenal, who play Liverpool later on today, and they've got Arsenal to play next game. And I kind of feel like now a point would secure Champions League football for Newcastle United. They've got Arsenal away and then Everton at home because Chelsea played Nottingham Forest, so they're going to be taking points off each other last game of the season. Chelsea got Man United at home next, and I actually think they will win that. So it all comes down to that last game of the season for Chelsea. But that league table is frightening because Aston Villa, you can't rule Aston Villa out. They've still got Man United and Tottenham, who full focus on the Europa League, even though their games are after the Europa League final. Tottenham, Man United have got nothing to play for in the league, so I do expect Villa to win them both. But that was a game that was so weird. It was because both teams look good in spells, but also very passive in spells. And I want to talk about a few bullet points that I've made, and I thought in that first half it was a tactical masterclass from Eddie Howe, similar to what we've seen when we played Arsenal at home, adapting to a five at the back, but it's not a defensive five at the back. Newcastle looked bright, aggressive, and they were attacking with intent. By having three natural centre-backs, that allowed Newcastle to have one stepping into midfield, which completely cancelled out exactly what Chelsea wanted to do, and that's create a box overload in midfield. It was a perfect start from Newcastle United. Chelsea actually started well. They earned a corner, and do you know when your phone goes off, you get a score update before it goes on the telly because it's like a minute before or something. My phone went off, and when Chelsea had a corner, I thought Chelsea have scored, but it wasn't. Newcastle United went up the other end of the pitch and put the ball away. And it was that man again, Sandro Tonali, who loves to get inside the box now. And we are going to break down the goals with some screenshots, so stay tuned for that. But all of the Newcastle players stepped up in that first half. And I want to give a special mention to Tino, Jacob Murphy, because they were wing backs today. They were defending defensive transitions, but also supporting and attacking transitions. They're going to sleep well tonight because they ran their socks off today, especially in that first half where it was just up and down that wing, and they were supporting attacks but also defending exactly when they needed to. I thought Sandro Tonali and Bruno were good in that middle of the park in the first half. They just kept it nice and simple, didn't overdo things, kept their discipline, pressed well, and moved the ball early. And I think that's one thing Newcastle did in that first half that they didn't do in the second half. That was move the ball quickly forward, but early. And that's how you catch Chelsea out, because when Chelsea move into their offensive shape, they're vulnerable because they can't get back in their defensive shape quick enough. So if you use the ball early, move it quickly, move it forward and exploit the space, that's how you get at Chelsea. And that's exactly what Newcastle United were doing in that first half. And that's why we've seen so much frustration from Chelsea. They were bringing down players, they were being aggressive. Nicholas Jackson, I don't know what he was thinking, but Moses Caicedo, he's my favourite Premier League midfielder alongside Sandro Tonali. He got the run around a little bit in that first half. He was getting caught out of position. He was fouling a lot because he was getting done every time. On the ball, he was very good, but off the ball, he just lacked that awareness to play right back in my position. I thought he was at the fault for the goal as well. But it was great to see Sven Botman back. He brings so much composure to our game. He's like a Rolls Royce. He's so composed off the ball, but in possession as well, he allows us to break through the lines, which I love about him. He started 4 or 5 games a season, might be 5, but the 4 main ones are Chelsea, Arsenal away and home, and Tottenham away, and we've won all 4 of them. That's what he brings to us. He brings up so much composure and solidity to that back line. It's absolutely emphatic, and I think I can't wait until he gets enough minutes where he's starting games regularly, where he gets that gets up to match sharpness where he's playing a regular 90 minutes because I think we'll be a better team for it. Newcastle have beaten Chelsea twice in the same season for the first time in 38 years. That just shows Chelsea's dominance against Newcastle, but it looks like the tide's starting to change, especially at St James's Park. We're starting to get results against Chelsea at St James's Park, and that was a huge win. And I want to give a shout out to Sandro Tonali because I always speak about him in match reviews, and I'm not even sorry for it. I always speak about it, so it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but he was everywhere today again. Again, just absolutely relentless energy. He's got batteries that never run out, and I can't say the same about Alexander Isak because I've said this for a little while now. There's a few games where he just doesn't look himself. Looks like he's playing through an injury, and personally, I would have brought on Asula a little bit earlier in that second half just to rough it up a bit. Somebody that'll run the channel, somebody that'll just press aggressively, have a bit of physicality, just some energy up front, because that's what we lacked in that second half. And I really did think Chelsea come back into that game in that second half. But in terms of the first half performance, Chelsea lacked structure, ideas and movement. And I felt like that 1-0 half-time scoreline flattered Chelsea. Second half was a different story. But let's talk about Nicholas Jackson because that was so immature, idiotic from Nicholas Jackson, and probably the biggest game of the season where they had to win. Every moment in that incident, he knew exactly what he was doing. It was a definite red card for me. Whether he connected properly or not doesn't matter. The intent was there. He looked at Botman. He knew exactly what he was doing. Elbows rising. He didn't have to do it. He did it. And it's a red card in my opinion. If that had been the other way around, Chelsea fans would be screaming for a red card. So any Chelsea fans that say that's not a red card, it's just lying to themselves. They're living in denial because it was a blatant red card. But Chelsea come out in that second half a lot stronger. They were moving the ball extremely well. Once Caicedo went back in the midfield, Reece James came on at right back. Chelsea had a lot more fluidity and chemistry about them. It allowed them to control the middle of the pitch, even when they did have 10 men. And for that reason, because of the opening 10 minutes of the second half, Eddie Howe decided to bring Miley on for Botman. I understand Botman hasn't played 90 minutes in a long time, so I'm not getting at bringing Botman off, but I don't think the substitution was right to bring Miley on at that time. I thought it was a little bit premature because it took away our shape. Then we'll move Jacob Murphy right back, and Jacob Murphy just didn't look comfortable, so I had to bring another substitution on and change it again, and that just gave the initiative to Chelsea. That gave them confidence that they could move the ball around, take control of the game. That's exactly what we're seeing in the second half. All Newcastle United had to do was manage the game, and they struggled because Chelsea on a different day could have scored, would have equalised. If Chelsea had had 11 men on that pitch, Nicholas Jackson didn't get sent off, I strongly believe that they would have equalised early in that second half, and then it's game on. Anybody's game, and Chelsea would have been in the ascendancy. So I actually think Newcastle got quite lucky that Nicholas Jackson got sent off, because I thought the substitutions from Eddie Howe to change the shape at that moment was a little premature for my liking. I didn't really understand it, but we got away with it. We played like we had 10 men in that second half. Like I mentioned, if Nicholas Jackson hadn't got sent off, I think Chelsea would have equalised at least in that second half. Newcastle was second best everything. In the first half, we were winning the first balls, the second balls. In the second half, we weren't at all. Now I want to give a special mention to Levi Colwell and Trevor Chalobah because I thought they were excellent for Chelsea today. They kept Alexander Isak extremely quiet, but I just thought Newcastle were excellent in that first half. They did so well to prevent Lavia getting on the ball, because I mentioned in my preview, he's the key to everything. I mentioned 3 things Newcastle need to do. Stop that box shape in the middle, which is exactly what they did. Move the ball quickly and early, which is exactly what it did. And exploit the width, which is exactly what they did. So I thought Eddie Howe tactically got it spot on in that first half, and it really nullified and prevented Chelsea from looking dangerous or really getting in any rhythm. And I thought it was excellent stuff from Newcastle United. One of the best things about Newcastle United off the ball is we understand when to press aggressively and not when to press aggressively. So when Chelsea were moving the ball in their own half, just along their back four, we were happy just to keep shape. We were saying, you have the ball in that area because you're not punishing us in that area. Once they entered into our midfield, into the back end of the middle third or our final third, that's when we press aggressively, win the ball. And it suits Newcastle United doing that because we invite them onto us, win the ball back, and then we've got space to break into. And that was happening time and time again in that first half. And in the second half, we didn't really do that because we didn't have our natural shape and we moved it too much around. We changed our shape too much to really set a structure to manage the game off the ball. And I think that's what I'm getting at, what I mean about managing the game. We need to manage it better off the ball. And I think Reece James's header, Cucurella had one where Nick Pope had a brilliant save down to his left. Enzo Fernandez put one over the ball where Nick Pope tipped her over the bar. So Chelsea did have their openings. There might not be clear-cut chances, but on a different day, they can score, and especially if they had 11 men. But I want to look at some of the shape that Newcastle United had, and I just thought it was excellent stuff. And we're talking about this back five shape. And this identifies it. We're structured as a 5-4-1, and Chelsea just couldn't break through it in that first half or even in that second half at the early stages. And I thought it was excellent stuff from Newcastle United. And then let's talk about the goal, because I spoke about Lavia wanting to get on the ball on the half turn. Now, we pressed Lavia so aggressively in that first half. Didn't let him move the ball between the lines, and I thought that stop prevented Chelsea from doing anything. Brilliant pressure from Sandro Tonali to win the ball back. And this is what I'm talking about, playing Moses Caicedo at right back. He's good when you can dominate games where he doesn't have to focus on the defensive responsibilities. When Chelsea's a better team, let's say if they were playing Ipswich today, Moses Caicedo at right back would be brilliant because he can step in that midfield and he would play the majority of the game in that midfield. The reason why he looked out of place in that first half, because Newcastle were getting the better of the first half, and he had to spend the majority of the first half at right back, and he didn't really feel comfortable. And this is what I'm talking about. It's not about is Caicedo a good player, because we all know he's a fantastic player. It's about learning the role. Positional awareness is wrong, doesn't track his runner, and Sandro Tonali is free inside the box. But because Caicedo is not a natural right back, this sort of thing happens when you're under the cosh. And I kind of feel like Newcastle United took advantage of that, because we were penetrating down their right and left hand side. We were looking to get in behind Cucurella and in behind Moses Caicedo, and I thought it was brilliant stuff from Newcastle in that first half. But then in the second half, Chelsea came on top, and this is what I don't understand, is how much space Chelsea had in that second half all over the pitch, and they started to gain control of that midfield. And as you can see, Enzo Fernandez getting on the ball, and it looked like Newcastle had 10 men in that second half, Chelsea had 11, and it was happening time and time again. Cole Palmer again, so much space and room to move into. But what was looking like squeaky bum time for Newcastle United turned into a glorious moment, because Bruno put one in the top corner. I know it took a wicked deflection, but if you don't shoot, you don't score. And this is what can happen. We were under the caution that second half. Let's not lie about it. We were defending, and we were box defending. We were just sitting in a bank of foam trying to catch Chelsea on the break. Chelsea had the initiative in that second half, in my opinion. But moments like this is what win you games of football. Today wasn't about the performance for anybody. I think if I'd offered any manager, you play terribly today and sneak a 1-0 win, the manager would have took it. Absolutely would have took it. So today wasn't about the performance. At this stage of the season, it's all about getting points on the board. And this cushion just allows us just to enjoy this moment, and that's exactly what Bruno Guimaraes does here. And I bet you Enzo Fernandez was absolutely gutted, because they were at each other all game. An Argentine against a Brazilian. Brazilian came out on top this time, 2-0 win for Newcastle United. And what a moment for Newcastle United, because they went into third in the Premier League and point behind Arsenal. I think Liverpool and Arsenal draw today, in my opinion, but Newcastle going to Arsenal, there's absolutely no reason why we can't go in there and win, because we've done it before. And I actually think with Sven Botman coming back, he might play the same formation at Arsenal is what we're seeing just at Chelsea now. But in that second half, it did look like Newcastle were running on empties. It looked like they had no energy just to take control of the game. And I kind of feel like it's in Newcastle's hands now. They've got it in their hands. They win their games. They get points on the board. They get Champions League football. They don't need to rely on anybody else. Whereas I kind of feel like Chelsea and Nottingham Forest do, and Villa. But the fact that Chelsea played Nottingham Forest is absolutely massive. It's at Nottingham Forest as well. So Chelsea got to go away from home. So if they draw and lose their other games and Villa win both of theirs, Villa get Champions League football. That's how close it is. It's absolutely monumental. This game was monumental, and Newcastle United, doesn't matter about the performance, as long as you get 3 points on the board. But I want to hear from you guys. What did you make of that game? What did you make of the sending off? What did you make of Chelsea's second half? What did you make of Newcastle's first half? Let me know in the comments below. But if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, away the lads.